All right, this is Mr. McMurray, and we're here talking about the male reproductive notes. Okay, I'm going to pause it on this screen, or actually you need to pause it, and copy all these notes down. Then we will go talk about all the notes when we look at the picture. All right, so you got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you haven't paused it, then we're going to move on. All right, this is the second page of the notes. You need to pause this right now and write all this stuff down. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And if you waited that long, you're probably too late. All right, so let's go on to the third page. And this is the third page. Once again, you need to pause this page, copy down all these notes. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, boom. Okay, and if you didn't get it, that's too bad. I feel bad for you. But let's move on to other things, maybe even more important things, to actually talk about these notes. All right, now you need to label this picture. A couple things over here. The rectum is not part of the reproductive system, but we're putting it there just to kind of give you a reference of where that is, and it will be important when we talk about the prostate. Urinary bladder is up here, also not important really as far as the reproductive system per se, although it's connected to the male reproductive system, but it's there, okay? The urethra is the tube going through the penis here, okay? But keep in mind it comes all the way from the bladder. Now it's called different things along the way, but basically it's the urethra all the way from the bladder out. But notice there's a lot of other things that empty into it that have to do with the reproductive system as well. So the urethra is part of the reproductive and the urinary system. All right, so right now here you got the scrotum, the sac. Then you have the testes, which is the actual gonad or sex organ. The epididymis, where it swirls around and goes through a long tube. Then you got the vas deferent, or it can also be called the ductus deferent. That's this long tube, comes all the way up, goes circles back around here. All right, with the sperm, once they're ready. Then you have the seminal vesicle, which is going to squirt some things into. Here's the vas deferens coming here. The seminal vesicle is going to squirt some fluids here that go with it. And then we have the prostate gland, which is right here, and the bulbourethral gland. Urethral has to do with the urethra. It empties into the urethra, and it is bulb-shaped, so that's probably where we got that part of the name. The ejaculatory duct is where the seminal vesicle and the sperm from the vas deferens are going to join together in the ejaculatory duct. And then finally, we have the penis is this whole thing here, but the gland's penis is this whole head part right here. It shows there's one little line right there, but really it would be, it should be about this line, but it's this whole head part of the penis. And then over here is the prepuce, or the little covering around it. Okay? All right. Now, on your actual testicles, we're going to look a little closer. These little cool tubes are called the sperminiferous tubules, and then you have the interstitial cells, cells on the bottom, got chopped off, but interstitial cells. Remember, interstitial fluid was the fluid between cells. Well, this is the cells that are in between the sperminiferous tubules, and we'll talk about that difference here in a minute. All right, so let's get on to our notes. Once you've got this labeled, you may need to pause it to catch up. All right, first of all, gonads. You may have heard the word gonads. Gonads just means primary sex organs, okay? That would be the testes in males, but it would also include the ovary in females. So a lot of times, guys especially use that just to mean testes, but technically it can be either one. The main sex organs are the gonads. The gametes are the actual sex cells that are produced by those. The testes produce a sperm, and the ovary produces eggs, okay, or ova. All right, so it should be ova or eggs. All right, so just kind of get those terms down in case you hear them. That's what they should be referring to. Now, male reproductive organs. First of all, the scrotum is the sac that holds the testicles here. It actually holds it down below the body. All right, and this is important because sperm actually cannot operate effectively and be functional, if you will, at body temperature. They have to actually be a little cooler, and that's why the scrotum has to hold them down below out of the body so they can be a little bit cooler. If they get too hot, then the sperm are not going to be fertile or be able to fertilize an egg. All right, and so they have to hang down at a lower temperature. Now, if it gets cold, on the other hand, there are muscles and stuff in here that pull the scrotum up, so it hugs it back up closer to the body to get the proper body temperature. Okay? All right, testes is, of course, obviously the testes or testicle. You may hear them called testicles. Testes is what they usually use in the anatomy class. It has several parts here, okay? First of all, the interstitial cells are the cells in between these little tubes here. We'll talk about it in a minute, but the interstitial cells make testosterone, okay? And testosterone is dumped into the blood, and if you remember the kind of gland that would be an endocrine. Endocrine glands dump their hormone or whatever directly into the blood. Then it would go through the blood to get to the different parts of your body. Okay, certain parts of your body would respond to the testosterone, and that would increase, get more body hair, facial hair, changes in your voice box, make your voice get deeper when guys hit puberty, that sort of thing. And so it would go affect that. So that's considered endocrine because it's dumping testosterone in your blood and then it goes throughout your body. All right. If you don't have enough testosterone, then basically you won't go through puberty and you have what we call sexual infantilism. Infantilism just means you're an infant. So in other words, you act immature, you never quite become sexually mature and don't have those changes that go with puberty. And you would, if that continued, then you would be sterile because you wouldn't be able to make sperm properly and so forth. And so that can be fixed, of course, by giving either shots or tablets that contain testosterone to get the testosterone levels back up. All right. Now, you also have these sperminiferous tubules, all right, which are all these little coiled things here. As you can imagine, sperm, these have to do with making sperm. Basically, that means sperm-producing tubules. Oops, and there shouldn't be an L there, sorry. That should be Tubules. But anyhow, not tubules, but tubules, all right? And they make sperm, basically, and their job is to do that, okay? Therefore, they are an exocrine gland because they do not, of course, put sperm into the bloodstream. They just put them into outside of the tubes, into these, and then they go out here, but they get excreted, so that's considered an exocrine gland or exocrine function of it, all right? Now, just for the record, anytime a guy ejaculates, it's usually only about 2 to 5 milliliters. Someone says, well, how much is that? Well, if you think about a 100 graduated milliliters cylinder, 2 to 5 is just a little bit at the bottom. It's about a teaspoon. That would be like a spoon that you'd use at home around the table, eat cereal with, that size of that. So it's not very much. Okay, it's a very small amount per ejaculation. However, in that, you would have anywhere from 50 to 150 million sperm. Okay, so there's a lot of sperm in there. Okay, very dense, packed in there. Very, very number. In fact, if you have less than 20 million, still sounds like a bunch of sperm, but it's very unlikely that you're going to be able to get the wife pregnant. And so basically, you would be considered, if not sterile, at least very difficult to get fertilized. Okay. Now, granted, obviously, let's say you could not, that woman could not get pregnant. No, but it only takes one sperm. But the odds are that with only 20 million, that one would not make it, okay? And that just kind of goes to point out how few sperm are going to survive, okay? So the odds of any individual sperm getting there and fertilizing the egg is very, very, very low, okay? All right. Some things that can cause a low sperm count would include exposure to lead, all right, PB, lead, antibiotics. Antibiotics would be some of a temporary thing. While you're on the antibiotics, it may lower your sperm count, but then after you got off the antibiotics, it would go back up, as opposed to like the lead exposure might be more permanent. Radiation, if you're exposed to radiation, x-rays, radiation for cancer treatments, things like that. Marijuana, using marijuana can lower your count. Tobacco use can also lower your sperm count. And excessive alcohol can also lower your sperm count. So all those things could result in a low sperm count. So one of the first things they'll do, if a couple is trying to get pregnant but having difficulty, one of the first things they'll do, of course, is check for the guys just to make sure that he actually has the man actually has enough sperm in order for the woman to get pregnant. There's no use in doing all this other stuff if the problem is he's just not making enough sperm. All right. The epididymis. All right. Once they get the spermiferous tubules, create the sperm, they go here and they go up here, and then they start going through this tube. Very long tube here. It comes down and then it comes back around over here. All right. This tube is actually about 20 feet long. Okay. If you were to stretch it out, very small tube, very fine tube. It's all packed in there around the testicle, but it's actually about 20 feet, or I believe 5 meters or 6 meters or something like that. But yeah, 20 feet long. Okay. Now, as the sperm go through this tube, and it takes them about 20 days, so it's about a foot a day, there are little tweaks in there, finished up, they're matured, and they get some little changes to them. Biggest ability that they gain during this time is that they can learn to swim. Okay, for this, they're not swimming, they've been produced, but they're not really able to swim quite yet. And so this allows them to do that. Okay, and so as they go through these 20 days, they mature and are finished off. Okay. Now, does that mean that once a guy ejaculates, he has to wait 20 days before he have more sperm? No, because there's constantly sperm being produced. So the sperm that he has right now were produced originally 20 days ago and have been maturing. Okay, and so there's always a supply of sperm, but it just takes 20 days from the time they're produced before they're actually ready to go. All right. Now, the walls of the epididymis, when a man ejaculates, would contract and squeeze and push the sperm down. Okay, and that's part of what causes that to happen. Okay, the walls of the epididymis. All right. Now, once it gets up the epididymis, it would go through a tube, which is probably going up here, but then let's go here. And this is the vas deferens. It's also called the ductus deferens. But basically, it means to carry away. And that's because it's carrying away the sperm from the testes to where it needs to go. All right, so it's bringing it around, carrying it all the way over to here. All right, and if a guy is going to get his tubes cut, this is what they would do. They would go in. It would be outside the scrotum here. They would go in. They would cut this. They would either sew it or seal it off, and that would be it. All you would have is a local anesthesia. You would just have to have a little shot right here to deaden the skin right there. And that's pretty much it. It takes about 30 minutes to an hour. You just go into a doctor's office, get it done, go home, boom, and they recommend you take it easy for a day, but you could probably be out mowing the lawn later that afternoon. Okay, so now it does not keep your body from making sperm. Your body still makes sperm because you still have your testicle. It's still got the spermiferous. It's still making testosterone, so it's not going to make you less manly or anything like that. It's not like being castrated. If you remove this whole testes, then you would not be making sperm. You would not have testosterone, and unless you were taking testosterone supplements or something, then that would affect all that sort of things. But in this case, it's just going to do it. The sperm is going to get up here. When it tries to go down the vas deferens, can't get through. It would just be reabsorbed by your body and whatever. And so there's just not any sperm coming over here. All right, and so that is what a vasectomy would do. All right, generally speaking, it's a lot easier for a guy to get a vasectomy because it's an exterior surgery. It just happens very quickly. For a woman, you're gonna have to cut into the abdomen, go in and tie the fallopian tubes off. It's much more invasive surgery. It takes longer to recuperate from. It's more expensive, requires more doctors and anesthesia and that sort of thing. And so it's actually probably a lot easier, less expensive, and efficient for a guy to get his tubes tied, but some guys are just a little squeamish about that. All right, which is a shame probably, but there you go. All right, last thing we're going to talk about on this video then is probably the seminal vesicle. Let me find my thing here. Okay, there we go. Seminal vesicle. So here you have just mostly sperm coming down. The seminal vesicle, seminal makes seminal fluid. It's basically part of the semen. We'll talk about semen here in a little bit. But seminal fluid, and this is a fluid that contains sugars like fructose, vitamin C, and other nutrients that keep the sperm alive, because the sperm are like little individual cells. They're almost like little invading single cell animals that are inside here. They're not connected to your bloodstream. They can't get oxygen. They can't get food, all that sort of thing. They're kind of living on their own inside the male's body. So they need to have some kind of food and nutrients to keep them alive, and that's what this fluid secreted by the seminal vesicle is going to do. It's going to keep those sperm alive and nourished until they can do their job. All right.